Okay, we're now ready for Limits 10, Complex Fractions and Rationalizing Combo. When you have 0 over 0, you're in determinate form. Your question is always, will I survive? And the answer is yes. These are painful because the amount of writing that you all will consider awful, but it's necessary. A college prof will make you do all these steps and show all this work, so suck it up and endure. So, the procedure. You're going to remove complex fractions using the pattern that you learned in video 8. You're going to rationalize the denominator second using the pattern you learned in video 7. You will then simplify, and if necessary, which it won't be in any of these, factor, but then you always have to reduce the troublesome part out that gives you 0 over 0, and in this case, it's always x. And so you will then evaluate by substituting the given value in, which in this case will always be 0. Steps 1 through 4 is the standard SOP order of operation, whether or not limits are involved. Okay, so let's go to the first of 3 problems. Here we have this lovely problem. I substitute 0, and 1 over square root 7 minus 1 over square root 7 is, you guessed it, 0. And so now we have 0 over 0, and we have to do more algebra. Now, what is the more algebra we have to do? We always remove the complex fractions. So you show me that you're going to multiply by the common denominator, but you're going to play what's missing. And one will be missing the root 7, and this one will be missing the root x plus 7. Now, I showed this as a cleanup step, but you would never have this as standalone. You would immediately attach what we're going to do next right there, but I wanted you to see that that's the result. Step 2 then would be to rationalize the numerator. And so, since we see this is a difference, we're going to use the sum. And then we'll use the pattern that we learned, which is keep the square brackets, and first times first is 7, and second times second is x plus 7. And yes, look at that denominator. It is now in the 3rd trimester of pregnancy. Ah, yes, up here it was in the 1st. Here it was in the 2nd. Now it's in the 3rd, and we want to move on quickly to delivery. And so now 7 minus 7 gives you negative x. I cancel the x. The baby has been removed. And so now I am ready to substitute. When I plug in 0, I get a series of root 7s. A root 7 times root 7, which gives me a 7, and a root 7 plus root 7, which gives me 2 root 7, whose product is 14 root 7, and my answer is negative 1 over 14 root 7. And yes, this can be written as negative root 7 over 98 if it were multiple choice, but your college professor and Mr. Capps and myself are going to leave it like this. Notice the denominator always will become number 2 times number, and so whatever you get is always going to be the number squared times 2 times the number. And so that will be the pattern. We'll see it happening here. Okay, example 2. In example 2, I put in my 0. 1 over square root 16 is 4. 1/4 minus 1/4 is 0. So yes, again, I'm 0 over 0. So yes, I must remove the complex fraction. Notice how I put in the brackets and the 1. That's SOP. And so my common denominator of the denominators is 4 and the square root of x plus 16. So I indicate that I'm going to multiply, but you know us, we do what's missing. This one needs the 4, this one needs the square root x plus 16. And so I just have 4 and square root x plus 16. Notice from the first trimester of pregnancy now to the second as I combine. Yes, you always put the coefficient in front of the monomial. Get serious. This step would never be standalone. You would immediately attach to this step the rationalizing of the numerator. And so the 4 minus square root x plus 16 needs 4 plus square root 16. So use the pattern we've learned before. Keep those square brackets. Look at that denominator. It's now made it to the third trimester. First, purple second, and red is third. Now careful. In this one over here, we had root 7 times root 7, and so we just got 7. We didn't have to think. But here, 4 times 4 is not 4. It's going to be 16. Notice you'll know you've goofed up if these two numbers don't match, because they must always die. And so now I distribute, and I get 16 minus x minus 16. I simplify the numerator and get negative x. Notice we keep rewriting that stupid denominator. I factor and reduce, delivering that baby. We needed to get rid of x because that's what made it 0. And so now I've got this mess, but notice when I substitute 0, I get a 4, and a 4 plus 4. Ah, yes, I get number, 2 times number. 16 times 8 is 128. So my final answer is negative 1 over 128. Last and final problem. Yes, we don't give you many of these because they are a pain in the derriere. Again, I insert my 0. 1 over root 7 minus 1 over root 7 is 0. And yes, again, I have 0 over 0. So I must do more algebra. See, I put in my square brackets. I multiply by the common denominator of the denominators, which is root 7 times the square root of 3x plus 7. But I don't actually multiply. I play what's missing. One needs the root 7. This one needs the square root of 3 root 7. I insert them again. I just left that so you could see that I did the step, but you would never have that step. It would go from here to there because you just keep showing work. So now I need to rationalize my numerator. So I use the sum. And when I multiply, everything's under a radical again, so I don't have to think hard. Root 7 times root 7 is 7. Notice those two numbers must match. So they do. I distribute. 7 minus 3x, minus 7 gives me negative 3x. Note here is first trimester, second trimester, third trimester. Now that I'm down to the negative 3x, I can cancel my x's. And I've delivered the baby, and now I'm just ready to plug chug. I get a root 7, a root 7, a root 7 plus root 7. Yep, it's the same pattern that we've been doing, yes. See, it's the pattern. 7 times 2 root 7 is 14 over root 7, and I have negative 3 over 14 root 7. Have fun. You only have 3.